Yep, that's your favorite sound of the day. That means it's time for a brand new episode of Bid Nerds. Welcome to the show, everyone. Have you hit the subscribe, like, or notification button yet? Please do so now. We're trying to grow the Nerd Nation, the Nerd Herd. We love you guys. Thank you so much for being subscribers and watching the show daily like so many of you do. We don't have a huge audience, Michael Deeb. We don't have massive numbers, but it seems like the people that watch the show like are into it. They're like watching it regularly.
Passionate nerds.
Passionate nerds. We love seeing the comments. We love seeing what people are having to say. You know, every now and then Michael Deeb will grace the comments with his presence. He tries to get in there sometimes.
I'm thinking about doing it again.
He's thinking about doing it one more time. All right. Well, you know, if you're new to the channel, what we do is we find an interesting car from one of the auction sites like P-Car Market, Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, and more. We have a conversation about that car because we think it's the most interesting car of that day. Then we make a prediction as to what's going to happen with that car's auction, and we marry our always wrong predictions with the reality. The
results,
cold reality of the results in the future that nary do they match our predictions, do they, Michael D? We are so bad at this. We've been doing it a while. We're still not any good at it.
Well, listen, we keep talking about all the different platforms that we cover. One of the platforms we cover, John, is ShiftGate. And ShiftGate are the boys that I think are up near the Canadian border somewhere. I want to say they're like out of Detroit or something. A bunch of race car guys that dabble with cars both in Canada and in the United States. And we're really hoping that ShiftGate makes it over the proverbial hump and gets to mass adoption. But John, over the last handful of weeks, we have not covered a car from ShiftGate because they have not had a live auction for like 2 or 3 weeks now as we sit here recording this show early in April. They have about 9 cars teed up as cars that are coming soon, one of which is an authentic 996 GT3 RS, a car that was never sold in the United States when they were new. And I'm waiting for that car to either drop or be announced that it's going to be here in 5 days or 9 days or whatever. But whatever's going on with ShiftGate, we wish them well. I really hope they make it, if they're looking for funding or if they're reorganizing or whatever they're doing. But fingers crossed. And if you know what's going on with ShiftGate, because I surely don't, please mention it in the comment. If you've heard some news about what's going on with them, let us know. Tell the audience. The Nerd Herd would like to find out what's happening with ShiftGate. We're trying to figure out if they're, is this tragic or is it just, an interruption in power delivery until the next gear comes? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, a lot of these platforms are, it seems like Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids just keep motoring along.
Yeah.
Everyone else, they swing, they miss, they hit, they miss, they hit. And, it's like, it seems like the little players are hitting just enough to stay in the game. But barely. They're just hanging. Like P-Car Market, they still surprise us like regularly.
Right.
P-Car Market did a better job in the first place, kind of coming to market and getting the name out there and being adopted, and they still have enough cars on there that people check often enough to see what's there. But how many times can you go to a place like ShiftGate or even Marked and be like, well, there's nothing here. I'm not coming back anymore. At some point, I want to see something I'm interested in, and there's so many different places for your eyeballs to go as a car enthusiast. You want to go to a website and you want to see something. And if they can't deliver, well, I mean, ShiftGate's really going to have to do something. I've always liked their branding. I've always liked their story. It does, when you have something like BAT selling hundreds of cars a day and you have to wait weeks to get on there, and then you have these other sites that are just like, no one's there. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a single guy waiting a ski line. Like, no waiting, come on, join me, and we'll go. We'll we'll catch the next seat. Back to your point about P-Car Market, that they always have cars to sell. I will tell you, John, because I'm looking at them freaking daily, and certainly weekly. If they go through, how do you say, 6 to 9 cars in a day. Usually 6 cars is about average for them on a given sale day. Every single week, they sell between like 8 and 12 signs, like old branded signs, and then they sell somebody's luggage, like luggage out of a Countach or something. And then they're selling exhaust and wheels. Like they've always got 2 or 3 sets of wheels up. They've always got like 2, 3 sets of luggage. So if you're talking about 6 lots a day, 2 or 3 of those lots on any given day aren't even really cars. So I mean, they're the P-car market, the rummage sale of online auction platforms. So I get it, like they're catering to the enthusiast, but oftentimes those things don't sell, and so you go to the deal tank, and in a deal tank, it's like you're at a memorabilia tent at a big car auction. It's like it's kind of
with
comical. Do you know what I mean?
everything way overpriced. Yeah, it seems, and so much of that
Yeah.
stuff just, yeah. All right. Well, all right. The car that we're talking about today is none of those things. I think you chose something kind of interesting. Well, I mean, we always choose something kind of interesting. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
I love these. Let's get to the most interesting car of the day. Let's get right to that.
John, right off of Bring a Trailer is this 1995 Toyota pickup Xtracab DX trim level with a V6 4x4. The really interesting thing, car, is, John, look how clean and original this car is. Showing just 25,000 original miles, and all the bright work and the wheels and the tires. I mean, this car looks like it's on the showroom. It looks like a car you would have photographed for the brochure back in the day. Offered out of Moonachie, New Jersey. Moonachie, Moonachie, New Jersey. And again, with just 25,000 miles, everything going for this car except that it's a 4-speed automatic, which is kind of a bummer because I really think that this car would bring more money with the manual. That seems to be the case with a lot of cars from this era. Anytime we see a sports car that came with a manual or an automatic from the early 90s or even the early 2000s, the manuals are bringing big premiums. And I think that you would at least expect to see a significant smaller premium for a manual here. But this car looks really cool, John. It reminds me of an era when you and I were in our early 20s. And cars like this were extra cool. Now, listen, I grew up in the city. You didn't see these very often, but you grew up in, if I'm saying this right, Snohomish, up there in Seattle and Washington. I imagine these cars were everywhere when you were growing up. I look at it, it's easy to think about Back to the Future, to put a roll bar with a couple rally lights on it and get some, thicker knobby tires on this car. I wouldn't even need a lift kit. I think it would just be really cool if it had some big knobby tires and a roll bar. This car is pretty dope. Automatic is okay. The manual, I think, would bring more money. But John, we haven't covered a truck in a while. I picked this car thinking about you. But as I look at this car, damn, it is really clean. Like, what's the backstory on why a person owned this vehicle and bothered to store it for 30 years and never got around to driving this thing? How is it that this car, just 2 previous owners, has not been driven by either one of them and still looks basically showroom ready? So, JP, tell me anything significant about this car that I might have missed from a mechanical standpoint. And then I'm curious to know what your take is on, is there still as great a demand for an automatic, or would this car just bring, obviously a chunk more money if it were manual, because that's really what you want if you're actually going to drive it and go off road. Radwood Gold, huh? What do you think?
Love it. No, the automatic thing doesn't really hurt this, like like a Supra or something like that, where that would just destroy the value. This truck, in a lot of ways, might be worth more with an automatic. I mean, people want to, this was the top of the line pickup truck they made back then, and automatics are kind of hard to find. A lot of people wanted that luxury when, look, this thing has splitty seats, right? Instead of the bench, which most of them had. My dad had one of these, not the nice one. My dad had basically the two-seater bench seat with no storage behind it. I remember we had a Datsun that had a king cab, didn't have seats behind it, but that's where I rode when I was a little kid. This would have been like a limousine compared to that little Datsun pickup truck that I was stuck in. I am just so into this thing. And it shocks me how expensive how much money these are bringing. They really are bulletproof. everything you've ever heard. Look at that back seat. Compared to the, the crew cabs that they have now, look how Spartan that is. There's actually seatbelts for 2 people back there, although you wouldn't, I think
Crazy.
a 911 might be have a more comfortable back seat.
John, what were they brand new? Were they in the teens of thousands or were they over 20?
They were, this one was probably somewhere in the 20s because it was a 6-cylinder automatic Xtracab 4x4, all the things. This checked all the boxes. Yeah. If I'm looking for a Toyota pickup truck of this era, an old SR5, I am looking for the bench seat. I am looking for the manual. I am looking for, the single cab, not the Xtracab. That's what I prefer, but that's me personally. I think most people looking for this truck, really, this is kind of what they want. It's interesting, it's got some surface rust on some of the bits underneath, but nothing that doesn't look like it's got any cancer. This car is from New Jersey. That's the one thing. That's the only downside I'm seeing on this thing is that some of that surface stuff is a little corroded, but again, nothing bad. This thing will still survive the apocalypse. This car will last forever. Whew, I want this truck, man. I want this truck. I don't have the money for it because it's going to go for a lot of dough. You will need a truck for the pile of cash to deliver to this dealer to buy it. It's going to bring all the money. What do you think it's going to bring you?
So, John, our car doesn't close for quite a few days, like 4 days out from where we're recording. At the moment, JP, the car is sitting at $17,250 on I'm scrolling 11 bids. I forgot to put the 11 bids in my notes. Sorry about that. I think the car over the last couple of years, the really nice ones with manuals and low miles have brought in the 30s, but the price of that money has gone up. So I think inflation is sort of a trade-off for the automatic transmission. If this were a stick, I'd say it's probably going to go closer to 40, maybe 45 with all the bells and whistles, the Xtracab, the 4x4, the V6, the graphics, the condition. But I think with the automatic, it'll still be held up. So I'm going to go double kind of where it's at right now. I'm going to give it to you at $34,000 where I believe it will sell. There is a reserve, but I imagine that reserve is governed by BAT is probably in that $25,000 to $30,000 range. So when I give you 34, JP, I'm confident this car will sell at that number. The question is, are you going to go over me and by how much? So 34,000 to you, JP. Where you at?
As bearish as I am on everything, you guys know me. You know what I think of the economy. We haven't even started talking about the debt ceiling. 25,000 miles, bro. This thing, $50,000.
Really?
This thing is going to bring so much money. I was at the Barrett-Jackson auction, I want to say in 2018 or 19, probably 18. I just happened to go in there. I think I was there visiting our friends at God and Porsche and walking around. And I'm embarrassed to say I'd never been to a Barrett-Jackson. I'd never actually gone, right? I've always seen them on TV and stuff like that. Yeah. And, so I'm kind of walking around, I'm hanging out, and I don't know what my credentials were for getting in, how I got in. But I didn't have a bidder pass. So I was like, okay. And I'm looking at a bunch of the cars that are kind of like waiting. You know how they have them in the back, they line up and they, one at a time. And it's just kind of, each car takes about 3-4 minutes. And there were 2 Toyota pickup trucks of this era. One was older, one was the previous generation, but they were of this, the 80s and early 90s. And one of them had like 150,000 miles on it, but it was in this kind of condition. It looked great. Had the cool stripes on it and everything like that. Double cab, automatic. I'm going, you know what? It's an auction, right? I'm going to try to get a deal. So I go over to sign up to get myself, to be able to
bid.
And they're like, oh yeah, we want, we need $10,000 and we need all this and that. I'm like, I didn't realize how hard it was. I was like, well, that sucks. Yeah. Okay, that's too bad. And then so I'm like hanging out, drinking some champagne with somebody, and sure enough, the truck gets up there. And again, this is 2018, maybe 2019. I
remember.
Right?
I was there. Yeah.
You may have been at the same auction, right? You were in one of the booths with all the fancy people. And that truck went up there, and I'm like going, okay, let's see what I'm gonna. I was preparing myself to be like, dang it, I could have bought that. And that truck went for like 35 grand with 150,000 miles on it. I was like, what? So yeah, if this thing doesn't bring 50 grand, I don't know. Yeah, it's 25,000 miles. I haven't seen one with this few miles. That may as well be 25 miles.
Well,
these get driven, like you said. What circumstances, what world happened where this thing wasn't driven this whole time? That's crazy.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. You would think somebody died and this was like in probate in a garage in a house that was in probate for like 16 years, and they finally got the family to make a settlement with an attorney or a mediator,
Right,
and like,
yeah.
all right, now sell the car and pay the family the money. Proving I don't really know anything about these cars. So I said $34,000. If JP's right, then I'm way off the mark. But again, I just, I appreciate them, but I just don't know them well enough. So 50 grand, JP. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see how far off I actually am right after this, huh?
Yeah, I don't think I'm throwing that big number out there, but I don't know if I've seen one that's sold that much, because I don't think we've seen one with this few miles. You know that game that you play it's like, okay, if you could have two cars for the rest of your life, that's the only cars that you could ever get, right? You have to like go into that equation and go, well, if I can't replace it, what happens when it starts to get high miles, right? So that's why you're not picking a Countach or something like that, because it's going to break and blow up. This is car one. And then the other car is an air-cooled 911 of some sort. Because this car, it will be the one that will always work for the rest of your life. If you think you got 20, 30, 50 years left, it better be this car, because anything else ain't going to make it.
John, I bought that 2015 Cayenne diesel, and I'm telling you, it's one of the greatest cars I've ever owned. The smartest choice. And of course, you know me, I want a GTS with PDCC and a panoramic roof, and I didn't get any of that stuff. We got a Cayenne diesel, probably the smartest decision I've ever made. And park it air cooled next to that, and I'd be set. I'd be set for life. I'd be a happy boy, and I would enjoy every driving minute in those two cars. So I'm with you on that.
Except that diesel at some point in the 200,000 miles is going to start giving you issues, and will eventually break to the point that it can't be repaired. The Toyota will never, ever, 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 ever fail. I mean, you get 500,000 miles on it.
If you want to know how good a Toyota is, ask your friendly neighborhood terrorist or John Polnick, my partner, the two people that endorse the Toyota.
That is Adam Carolla's take. All right, guys, let's find out what happens with this Toyota right after this. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy.
1989 linen gray metallic G50 cab.
Is that going to be for sale?
It is going to be for sale. The car only has 65,000 miles.
Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas.
If you love watching car videos on YouTube, you gotta check out my channel, The Rami Show. Oh, this car!
Rami getting after it in a Lamborghini. If you haven't checked out the Rami Show, that's one of our sister channels. You're really missing out on something. Rami drives all kinds of crazy stuff, not just Lamborghinis, a lot of classic Porsches, 993 RSs. We've got a GT2 roof 993 coming up in a feature. We're about to drop a film about a 458 Ferrari. It's all over the place. But if you are an enthusiast car guy and you like car reviews and you don't like Doug DeMuro and his, man, this is the place where you put your lipstick. Our car reviews are not informative. You will learn almost nothing, but you're going to have a lot more fun watching them. All right, check out the Rami Show. And thanks for being here, guys, and sticking around through the commercials to find out what happened on this freaking awesome 95 Toyota pickup truck that I really want to own. And as it turns out, maybe I could have. Michael Deeb, what happened with this truck?
I don't know, John. The trouble is we're left wanting on this one. So 95 pickup, Xtracab DX V6 4x4 with just 25,000 miles out of New Jersey. John, I said 34 grand, saying that the gearbox would hold it back. You bid $50,000 saying that the gearbox is a non-factor. I beg to differ, because our car failed to sell on Bring a Trailer at $22,250 on, let me give it to you, 33 bids. So the car got decent action, but man, did the bidding fizzle out at a really weirdly low number. Like, I thought my number might be low after listening to you talk about how this is kind of the holy grail, and with this low miles, the gearbox would be a non-factor. Somebody was going to pick it up. No pun intended there, but that didn't happen. I mean, God, 22,200. That is a super low number for the bidding to bid out on. Did you see something in the way the car was presented? Does it have something to do with the time of the year and the car's location in New Jersey? Do you think you'd reconsider your stance on the gearbox? Would you offer any explanation as to why this car didn't do better than it did? Because again, if it failed to sell at 40 grand, I'd say, yeah, John, you're right on the number. It's a $50,000 car. The reserve was set high. BAT agreed, on and on and on. And it just didn't quite make it over the hump. But like, this car at 22,000 feels like it barely failed to launch. So I can't offer an explanation other than to stand on, I think, the automatic. If it were a manual, it would have done better. That's easy to say at $22,000, but do you think it was only that, or what do you think?
No, I still don't think the transmission really had anything to do with it. It is an odd result. I mean, it was a Friday afternoon. Sometimes Friday auctions can fizzle because people are leaving the office or whatever. I just think that this is the kind of thing that I have seen trucks like this with way more miles, like I said before the break, get way more money. I still kind of stand by my number, even though I'm like off by a magnitude of 100%.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot, right? Clearly, I don't know what I'm doing. But what's interesting, you look at the comments, and it's like, a dealership in Seattle wound up buying this. It looks like they made a deal. It says in the comments that Seattle Trucks wound up buying this thing. So you're going to see this for sale on their collection somewhere, and it's going to be in the 40s is what they're going to ask for this thing. Because, when a dealership is, the dealership was like, wow, this is a surprising ending. A lot of the comments are like, everyone thought this was going to go way higher. I don't know what happened with this particular auction. I don't know if it's just trucks aren't a thing as something like the audience just wasn't there on BAT or any of the auction sites. The person that wants this truck is somewhere else. Maybe they're at, Barrett Jackson or something. I still don't know exactly, but the fact that a dealer bought this makes me confident that there was something weird about the listing or something about the day, that this is one of those weird anomalies.
Yeah, it's so funny. So somebody commented that Seattle Trucks deserves this truck for nothing else but a good poem. It's just like the comments on BAT sometimes are so wacky. JP, you grew up outside of Seattle. Is this not the perfect car to have if you wanted something cool to drive around and really get you in and out of any problem you could possibly muster? I mean, this is, the fact that it'll probably wind up in the Seattle market is a good thing, right?
Yeah, but you got to wonder if it will stay. I mean, this is the kind of thing that'll go on to a dealership that kind of sells this type of stuff. If you go to that dealership's website, they've got all kinds of really cool trucks.
Yeah.
And yes, trucks do really, really well in Seattle. Yeah, I mean, F-150s and Toyota pickup trucks and all that stuff. And that's the thing. It's like you can't buy anything like this anymore. Small trucks are really big trucks compared to this car. It's like every car. Yeah. It's like new 911s, 992s versus an old 87 Carrera. I mean, 992 is twice as big as a Carrera, right?
Yeah.
This type of, they don't make things like this anymore. And people that want them really want them. And I think there's people out there that will pay. I think Seattle Trucks will get something like 40-something grand for this truck.
Cool. Cool.
And on it, like I said before the break, it's like, dude, I would do, if I had to have one car for the rest of my life and I knew that we were going to apocalypse and you couldn't get, this is the kind of thing that you could just, get another car battery and some points and, it's just going to survive almost anything. I love this truck. I want this truck. What about you guys? What do you think happened with the auction? Is this really what they're worth, or do you think this was just a great opportunity for somebody like Seattle Trucks to come in and swoop in, get an amazing deal, and maybe double up on this thing to someone who truly realizes the value? It'll be interesting to kind of pay attention. Maybe we'll go back to Seattle Trucks and reach out to them and see what happens. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think of this result. And someone's got some information out there to school us on this. We probably just missed something really obvious, and we're just dumb.
Probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
Clearly, we're just dumb.
Yeah. Maybe they needed to put it on knobby tires and it was sold.
I don't think so.